Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of PsychTalk. Today, we're diving into how cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, plays a crucial role in overcoming addiction. Addiction is a battle that affects millions of people, and breaking free from it requires more than just willpower. It takes strategy, support, and the right tools. And that's where CBT comes in. So today we'll explore what CBT is, how it works, and why it's so effective in addiction recovery. We'll also go over some key techniques used in therapy and how they help rewire the brain to prevent relapse. So whether you're struggling with addiction yourself, supporting a loved one, or simply curious about the science behind therapy, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Cognitive behavioral therapy was developed by psychiatrist Aaron Beck in the 1960s, and since then it has become one of the most widely used and effective forms of therapy. But what makes it so powerful, especially for addiction treatment? Well, CBT is based on the idea that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all connected. So when someone struggles with addiction, they often have deeply ingrained negative thought patterns, like believing they have no control or that they're destined to fail. But CBT helps individuals recognize these thoughts, challenge them, and replace them with healthier beliefs. For example, instead of thinking, I always mess up, so what's the point of trying? A person learns to reframe that into, I have made mistakes before, but I have the power to make different choices now. And this shift in thinking is crucial in addiction recovery. And so, how exactly does CBT help people overcome addiction? Let's break it down into a few key areas. First of all, we identify triggers. So CBT helps individuals recognize what situations, emotions, or thoughts led them to use substances. Whether it's stress, boredom, or social pressure, understanding these triggers is the first step in breaking the cycle. 2. Changing thought patterns. People with addiction often have self-destructive belief, like I can't function without this, or I'm too weak to stop. And CBT teaches them to challenge these thoughts and replace them with empowering, realistic beliefs. And obviously, CBT is not just for people who are trying to overcome addiction, but it's for people with depression, people with anxiety. It's used in many different cases. And for example, if you have depression, usually people with depression, they have a lot of negative thoughts and they create this reality in which everything is negative, nothing works, they are a failure, nobody loves them. But those thoughts that they're having and that quote unquote reality world where they live in, it's actually not based on facts, it's not based on reality. And so we challenge these thoughts. Let's say a person with depression comes or goes to therapy, right? And they say, yeah, well, nobody loves me, I'm a failure, I always fail, I always do this, I always blah, blah, blah. We actually try to reframe those thoughts and ask them, well, what is the evidence that this is true? What is the evidence that nobody loves you? What is the evidence that you are a failure? You might have had some successes in your life, and so we challenge those negative thoughts and we challenge that faulty thinking. Okay, number 3, developing healthy coping strategies. So instead of turning to substances when faced with stress or anxiety, CBT provides alternative coping mechanisms such as mindfulness, deep breathing, or engaging in healthy activities, hanging out with your friends, etc., etc. Number 4, preventing relapse. So one of the biggest benefits of CBT is that it equips individuals with relapse prevention strategies. This means learning how to navigate high-risk situations, manage cravings, and stay committed to recovery even when challenges arise. So now let's talk about some specific techniques used in CBT that help individuals overcome addiction. We have journaling and self-reflection. So writing down thoughts and patterns can help people identify triggers and develop awareness of their emotional states. Role playing, so practicing responses to difficult situations in a safe environment, prepares individuals for real life challenges. And then identify cognitive distortions. So these are irrational thought patterns that fuel addiction. Some common ones include overgeneralization. So someone can say, I always fail at everything. Then there is mind reading. So the person with addiction can say, everyone thinks I'm worthless. And then we have disqualifying the positive. And they might say, well, that success doesn't count. It was just luck. And what we do as well is behavioral experiments. So we test out new behaviors and see positive outcomes can reinforce healthier habits. And so addiction often goes hand in hand with other mental health conditions as well. So like anxiety, depression, or PTSD. But the good news is that CBT is highly effective in treating this as well. So by addressing both addiction and underlying mental health issues simultaneously, CBT improves overall treatment outcomes. So when combined with other types of therapy, group therapy, AAs, etc., it provides a comprehensive approach to healing. And what's fascinating is that research shows CBT can actually change the way the brain functions. And functional MRI studies reveal that CBT strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and self-control. It also helps regulate the limbic system, which plays a role in emotional responses and cravings. And so this means that through CBT, individuals can literally rewire their brain to respond differently to triggers and make healthier choices. And so, how does it rewire the brain, you might ask? Let me give you some examples. So, again, CBT rewires the brain by challenging negative thoughts and creating new, healthier neural pathways. So, we have, first of all, challenging negative thoughts. So, there is this cognitive restructuring. And how it works is that the person learns how to identify this thought as a cognitive distortion, all or nothing thinking, and we reframe it as I've made mistakes, but I'm actively working toward change. An example could be a person recovering from alcohol addiction might think I'm a failure, so I might as well drink, right? What is the brain impact of that? Well, this process strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which helps with rational thinking and self-control, while reducing activity in the amygdala, which is associated with emotional reactivity. 2, we have behavioral experiments to reduce cravings. An example could be a person believes I need to smoke to calm down. And the CBT approach will be basically they're guided to test this belief by using deep breathing or exercise instead. So when they notice that their stress level decreases without smoking, their brain learns a new coping strategy. So instead of relying on smoking to not feel stress, we replace smoking with exercise or breathing or yoga, whatever it is. And so what is the brain impact in that? Well, this weakens the old addiction pathway and reinforces a new, healthier neural connection. And then third, we have urge surfing to break automatic responses. So an example could be when feeling stressed or like very tired, someone automatically reaches for a drug. And the CBT approach will be teaching to surf the urge by acknowledging the craving without acting on it. So by observing how the craving peaks and then fades, they learn that they can tolerate discomfort. And so the brain impact of that is that it enhances impulse control by strengthening the brain's ability to delay gratification. Then we have exposure therapy for trigger reduction. So an example could be a person is recovering from gambling addiction and avoids driving past a casino out of fear of relapsing. A CBT approach will be that with a therapist, they gradually expose themselves to the situation while using coping strategies. For example, self-talk, grounding techniques, and over time, their brain learns that exposure does not have to lead to action. And what happens in the brain is that the amygdala becomes less reactive to triggers, reducing automatic cravings. And then we have journaling to identify thought patterns. So an example could be someone in recovery journals after a relapse and realize realizes they always use substances after fighting with their partner. And a CBT approach could be working on recognizing these emotional triggers and developing alternative coping strategies like talking to a friend or going for a walk. And the impact that this has on the brain is that it builds stronger connections in the prefrontal cortex, enhancing self awareness and decision making. And so, now to wrap up, let's summarize the key benefits of CBT for addiction recovery. So, it is a personalized approach. So, CBT adapts to individual needs and challenges. There is an empowerment component to it. So, it helps individuals regain control over their thoughts and behaviors. There is a long-term effectiveness. So, the skills learned in CBT can be used for a lifetime. And it is a comprehensive treatment, so it works well alongside other therapies and treatments. And there is also the relapse prevention component, which is by addressing thought patterns and coping strategies, it significantly reduces the risk of relapse, and we rewire the brain. So if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, CBT can be a game changer. And obviously, seeking professional help and applying these techniques can lead to lasting recovery. And when people struggle with addiction, CBT or individual therapy usually is not enough. Group therapy is very important. AA, it's great if you are struggling with alcohol. There are other specific drugs, group therapies as well. And that's all for today's episode. So we have covered how CBT works, why it's so effective for addiction treatment, and the different techniques used in therapy. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Follow us on social media for more mental health content. We're called PsychTalk Pod on Instagram. We also have X and Spotify. So stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you for listening to PsychTalk, and see you next time.